I think in your words, you said you're looking to change the game of staging.
Big time. So, I mean, myself, much like other cooks and chefs and whatnot, have been staged at a restaurant, and people's experiences vary. You're the guy in the corner, you're picking the herbs, you're not allowed to touch things, or you're assigned to a CDP, and that's your guy for the day, or there's just an assortment of things. And none of which, I mean, hopefully you get to learn things, and it's cool. I got to stage at this restaurant, and that was awesome, and I saw this guy, I met this chef, and what I really want to do is include these people into our day, into our program, and into everything that we do here, to the point where they start with just prepping with us, but they're coming in with the absolute idea of their final day with us is going to be a presentation of 3 dishes that they created with my guidance to bring it to a level of hopeful personal understanding and then further application, so that not only do they have the experience of working with us, here at Stages, but then they really get to slow their world down, ask whatever they want to ask, talk about whatever they want to talk about, and ask the questions that, as they grow as a cook and as a chef, that they can look forward to and be like, okay, at some point I'm going to have to make these choices, so I'm sitting here myself, is like, I've owned this restaurant for almost 13 years. You have, an accomplished chef and owner of a restaurant right in front of you. What do you want to ask me?
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest back on the show. Not once, not twice, but a third time chef owner, Stages, Chef Evan Hennessey. Chef, you feeling unstoppable today?
Always unstoppable today.
Dude, psyched to have you. You're so good, man. And I had you on the show. You're episode 8.
That's amazing.
I know. Today you're going to be 1,133. Then I had you again on the show, 748. That was in September of 2020. And the reason why I came back to you a second time is because I really wanted to take the show in a direction of getting more vulnerable, going deeper with people that I really respect. And I've kind of since the last time I had you on the show, leaned more into that. And I've had people on the show from all over the country. And as I'm traveling, I want to go back to those people and go deeper and find out from them who I should talk to. And I saw that you did something recently online. You posted about your staging program.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff I want to get into. So we're definitely going to talk about that. But first, I want to just pick up where we left off. So real quick, what is your business today? You have Stages.
We have Stages, and then we open the living room. Our cocktail lounge.
And you're still catering.
We are not catering.
Not catering.
No.
Okay.
That was a means to an end.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's all you got going on right now.
That is.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Women, all right.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I can't wait to kind of pick up where we left off. But just real quick, hit us with a success quote or mantra to get that motivational ball rolling.
I always think for me, like success to me is defined in moments, and I think you always look where you are right now to be absolutely present, be mindful, be clear, but always be aware of how that will affect your future.
Interesting. So the last time you were on the show,
I can't wait to hear this.
You said be humble, but be brave and always look forward. So be in the moment, but also look forward.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we are as entrepreneurs always looking to the future.
Definitely.
We're always worried about the future, staying relevant, taking care of our staff, having a plan. So it's hard to be in the moment and to realize that you're doing the thing that you've always wanted to do. So dive more into like how that has that perspective has shifted over the past couple of years.
You actually just said a word right there that I want to pick out, which is staying relevant. And for us, we're about to hit 13 years of operations.
Congrats.
Coming this spring, which to me just blows my mind that we're still here sometimes, but for me, it was like we got to 10 years and it was becoming relevant, becoming important in the marketplace, and becoming what we are. And then the next set of time is staying relevant. How do you maintain your place here in the market? How do you maintain your relevancy with so many things changing? And I mean, with the constant movement of social media, with internet, everything is just faster, and there's more and more and more, and there's more restaurants opening and there's more restaurants closing. There's so much volatility in the industry. To stay relevant, which means in a lot of ways open, has become increasingly more difficult, I believe.
So what has that been a challenge for the past 4 years since we last had you on the show, staying relevant? Is that like what you've been most struggling with, or?
I guess in a lot of ways it's a lot of little things, but staying relevant for me is like you constantly need to provide a good product, provide something that the public wants. And as long as you can do that, then your doors will stay open. I guess the other side of that too is that you're constantly providing something that a staff would want, because you need both sides of that coin, right? So the introduction of the living room, our cocktail lounge, sort of complementing the kitchen table tasting menu. Because when we spoke before, I believe we just had the tasting menu. We were operating with that.
Right. When we last spoke, you were at 6 seats because of the pandemic.
Yep.
And your max was only 9. You did 2 turns a night.
Yeah.
And you were open 3 days a week.
Right. So we're still 3 days a week.
Okay.
We turn the 6, so we do 12 a night, and then the addition of the cocktail lounge, which is 19 seat, very cozy. I mean, we're sitting here now, so hopefully you're enjoying.
Yeah, man, I love it. I think the last time I was in the space, there was a rock climbing. There was
a rock wall, which is now at home in my garage.
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little sad to see that gone, but I love what you've done with the place, man. It's so warm and inviting.
Thank you. And I think that was kind of a part of it. That. I guess I'm going to jump around a little bit. As far as relevance, you mean things that you're looking at right now, where you're sitting, is also very relevant to me. It speaks to me. It speaks to my home, and it speaks to how I am. And I think that, again, tracking to one of our previous conversations, is being vulnerable. And this to me is that I'm showing myself to you within this. I'm showing you what's important to me: relaxing, comfort. You're looking around, you see paintings of mountains and whatnot, and it's like these are things that are important to me. And I think that instead of just kind of a manufactured space, that I want to even more so welcome you into my home. And I think that that's to me was the relevancy that I was kind of speaking to, is showing that. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the transformation. Really what I'm trying to do here is to document people over time. And I think if our mission statement is to change the world by transforming the industry, it starts with individual transformation. Yeah. So in 2020, get into that headspace. Where were you in 2020? What were you trying to achieve? And is that the same today?
I think what I'm trying to achieve, I mean, it varies, as you kind of grow and things change. That's always a tough question, to answer very succinctly.
Yeah, I know. I mean, well, let's just kind of go back over it. I feel like during the conversation I had with you, I just listened to it on the way up here to prepare. And what was important to you was finding balance, achieving balance, and doing. I think one thing that really stuck out to me, you mentioned how you work for people like Chef Keller and Grant Achatz, and great, amazing men who've done amazing things. But I think what you were trying to communicate, or what you communicated very well, was, look, I don't have to hold myself to that standard of working 7 days a week, of having all these accolades, and I just want to find balance between my life and my work. And that's why I only open 3 days a week. That's why I keep it small. That was kind of what I was picking up. Yeah. And you were rock climbing, get into that state of mind. Did you achieve that balance then?
Yeah, I believe that I have, and I'm still constantly, as we all are, a work in progress, but definitely, I'm definitely able to get outside more, to be at home, to be with the kids, to be with my wife, to be with the dogs, which we have another dog since last time you talked. And I think that for me, the influence of that into my working world has been exceptionally positive. It has allowed me to really kind of take a step back from working and cooking and find out what's important to me, and then bring that in. So absolutely, to find that balance.
So this space had a rock climbing wall, and I feel like, talk about transparency and vulnerability and showing yourself. That is a huge passion of yours. Yeah. Why take that out?
Because I wanted to create what we're sitting in right now. I think it took a long time to figure out what I really wanted this space to be. And in the meantime, I had the climbing wall up there, and I think that was kind of an expression of, obviously, of me, but it was a big question mark of, I don't know what I want this space to be, but this is a piece of me that I'm fine with showing.
And it feels right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What changed, do you think, that made you want to achieve what you've achieved now?
I moved. Here's a huge thing. We bought a house off in South Berwick, Maine, off in the woods, with a good-sized garage. So I actually built the rock wall there. So it moved, which, opening this space completely up, made it so that I could rebuild it the way that I wanted to.
Right.
And I didn't know what that was at that, but that really took some time to think that through.
Well, all I can do is make assumptions when I see where you were and where you are today. And when I think about what this space is today versus what it was 4 years ago, I mean, you were limited to 9 seats, 2 turns a night, 3 nights a week. With how many more seats do you have in here now?
19.
Right.
Yeah.
So my mind is going like, this is a much more like, it's you, it's your vulnerability, it's your space, it's your living room.
Yeah.
But in terms of business, there's probably more you can squeeze out of this space versus the rock climbing space.
Very true.
Did that have something to do with it?
It definitely did.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that, looking at what I was saying is like, so the rock wall was there, and obviously it's taking up, real estate, we'll call it,
Right.
on a financial end. But then I didn't know what I wanted it to be. It had to be real. It had to make sense. It had to generate dollars. And the living room is what came out of that entire thought process. It's complementary to the kitchen and the tasting menu, and enables us to offer our quality of food, but just at a much more casual idea, and not quite the entry level of the kitchen.
Got it. So kind of how does it work today? Like when people come in and you do a prefix meal, that's still what you're doing today,
Yep.
right? Are you still doing reservations only, or has it moved to events?
No,
It's ticketed events.
They are ticketed through Talk.
So that changed.
Okay. Yeah.
When did that change happen?
When did we start using Talk? It was probably like 2022.
Okay. Well, unpackaged all this. I got it.
Yeah.
So you went from reservation to ticketed events.
Yep.
You moved the rock wall out. Now you have the living room,
Right.
which is where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
Are you still doing 2 turns a night?
We are.
Anything else I should know about in terms of like evolution over the past 4 years, and then we'll kind of go chronologically and how that unpackaged over time.
Not necessarily. This is kind of the way the place sits is basically where we're at right now.
Okay. So when people come in for when are the 2 turns?
5:30 and 8 o'clock.
Okay. So when people have a say 5:30 reservation, are they coming in before that to have a couple cocktails and then sit down, or like what's the flow?
So sometimes, and I think having the living room gives them that ability to do that, so they don't have to show up right at 5:30 and right into the kitchen and right into their dinner, that they can literally walk into a friend's house, sit down,
get out of work,
and
come
hang
straight
out
here, wait 30 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
and have some drinks while they're here, and then start their evening. To me, that was much more of an at-home feel, kind of slowing down the fine dining process.
And so you have the 9 seats in the kitchen at the bar. What's it like on this side? Like, how do you like draw a line between the 2 experiences?
Menu
Okay.
is a big one. The kitchen has the tasting menu, and then we have a small plates a la carte out in the living room. So for us, that's offering a different food style that we haven't offered. Yeah.
Right. So what was that transition like?
It was a little different at first, because luckily I've been through restaurants that you offer a la carte and tasting and things like that. But for those restaurants, it was primarily a la carte, and then sometimes people would order the tasting menu. Where this is primarily tasting menu with the addition of the a la carte. So I had the career experience to know how to run multiple services at one time. But for us here, we've been doing just tasting, just prefix, very high, talk about hyper control. Like we knew everything that was going to go on for the evening, to we don't know how many people are going to walk in versus, plus reservations in the living room. And we have no idea what they're going to order. So you go from knowing exactly how much food to prep and everything you're doing to, back to the world of a la carte and guesswork.
Yeah. So when we last spoke, you said I said it's a volume game, right? And you said it's not a volume game; it's a numbers game.
Right.
Do you remember that?
I do.
Do you remember the sentiment behind that?
No, but I do remember saying that.
So I think for you, it was about. It's not just about how much money you're driving through your top line revenue, but it's also like controlling your bottom line, but not just the bottom line of your business, the bottom line of your life. And like, what do I need, Evan Hennessey, to be happy?
Right.
And like, if I can minimalize my life and focus on what I want, then my business doesn't really need to be focused on the top line. It can be focused on achieving the life I want. I'm curious, like, in terms of it's a numbers game, how, like, I know you don't have to share specific numbers, but like, has like the needle moved in a positive way since making these changes?
It has moved a positive way. As far as like our total annual revenue, it's kind of plateaued.
Okay.
We bumped up a little bit with the addition of the living room, and then it's for the most part plateaued, because again, we only have so many seats.
Right.
From then, it's the numbers game of controlling your cost. What are you putting your money towards, and that sort of thing.
controlling your liabilities, personal liabilities.
Correct,
too.
correct. You know, and we are, you know, you're looking back, I think we had talked about this before, is that like we've paid off debt. We are debt free here,
awesome.
other than just sort of, you know, week to week bills.
When did that happen?
That was, oh my God, roughly 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. So right around when we talked before, we were able to pay off loans early and all that other stuff. So to come out from underneath that is gigantic. And that removes a huge number from.
I can't wait that I'm debt free. So 2020, we had you on the show. Things opened up with the pandemic. You could go full bore. You said 2022 is when you went to reservations to ticketed events. When did the living room happen?
That was so right when they lifted the seating restrictions for COVID is when we did. And we, kind of during the closure time, while we were doing takeout, we tried that like everybody else did. And during that, we were basically putting this thing together. And then as soon as they lifted those seating restrictions, we opened it.
Got it. So the last time I was on the show, you also recommended a book called On Trail.
Yeah.
And I started listening to that this morning on my way here after I listened to your episode. And that really resonated with me because one of the things I learned with this podcast, you know, when I first started, I was trying to like crack the code. Like, what is the secret to success in the restaurant industry? And by around 2018, 19, I was driving myself crazy because I still hadn't cracked it after like 5 years of interviewing people. And then what I started to realize is that there is no one way. No. That there's whatever vision you have, whatever dream you have, you can make it your way. You can literally carve your own trail. You can carve your own path. So listening to that book and it kind of seeing how it parallels to your life and how you have that mindset of like, I'm just going to do what Evan Hennessey wants to do. Right. You know, I think that's that message of just like, you know, what makes sense for you in your particular life and your values and your vision, and then take a little bit of this, a little bit of that from this experience, that experience, and make your own experience. Yeah. And I see you doing that here. And I think that's really cool. I wanted to tie this. So, okay, tying that to, just had Chef, Lee Frank on the show. Yeah. And we were talking about his evolution, where he went from being a la carte and prefix to now just prefix. Right. And his rationality was because I was doing 50% prefix anyway, and like having like I can there's it's more manageable to go to 100% prefix because you know exactly what your costs are going to be. Yeah, and there's a higher percent profit on that experience. But he doesn't have a space like this, right? Like the living room, where there's like that other opportunity to serve a different demographic. Right. So like a perfect example of like no two restaurants are exactly the same. You have to take a little bit of what's going through your mind as I say this.
So a lot of things, you know, like Lee's like one of my greatest friends.
Lovely.
Awesome guy. And he has done a phenomenal job, not just for himself, but for the restaurant and for Exeter as a whole. And like you said, it's like no two spaces are the same. Right. And I think what helps me actually, you know, look at him too is like he has diversified his life and his revenue with the addition of Lee Frank's, the hamburger hot dog joints that he's got. And so this is our sort of next step in diversifying that, understanding. And I have some other friends with, you know, kind of around the country that have the very similar thing. It's like high end and fine dining is excellent. And I think in a lot of ways it satisfies, you know, our chef's creativity, our chef's ego, and so on and so forth. But financially, you need not just like a plan B, but you need a plan A/2.
A cash cow.
Yeah.
Something to pay for your
your fun, you know? And it's great because, you know, the tasting menu, you know, financially, like it makes sense. It does what it needed to do. And it you know, brings in money in, money out, and it does fine. This right here has enabled us to, I guess, keep a little more money in the bank for those rainy day seasons or rainy day times. And this is one of my understandings is like, you know, we're 13 years old, which means that we are very much shoulder deep in the area of equipment breaks, and it breaks without giving you any kind of warning. And so like we've had some major repairs done on our hood vent, on our walk-in, you know, on compressors on the coolers. I mean, these things are thousands of dollars. That a tasting menu on its own doesn't generate that extra sort of cash bump. Right. But the living room has dramatically helped with that. So that was my version of sort of creating a buffer.
Yeah. So 2022 is when you went, well, before we get to you going from reservations to ticketed events, what was the evolution, the challenges associated with bringing on this living room space?
I mean, a lot of it was just deciding what I wanted it to be and what was the secondary offering, what was the complementary offering to the tasting menu. How do we offer diversity, but yet it still sits under the same, it's just another room in the same house. I think that for us was the mental block of what to make that, kind of run the numbers of here's the question with this. What's its purpose? Like, what are we creating it for?
Okay.
You know, and I looked at this as we didn't take on any additional labor. Our rent did not increase. Our electricity didn't increase, you know, like all of our sort of in-house bills didn't go up. So what is the purpose of it? And I looked at it, if this can generate at minimum our rent payment on a monthly basis, it's a good idea.
Did you achieve that?
I did.
Awesome. Anything beyond that?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
It's definitely gone beyond that.
Nice.
Which has been good.
So you didn't have to bring on any more staff. I was curious about that because before it was basically you. How many chefs did you have on
I had
average?
me plus two.
Plus two.
Yeah.
Now you have this space out here. You never had a server before, right? Because you did.
Yep. Yeah. I have a sommelier.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a som that was basically serving as the server as well.
Correct.
Now they're basically floating around. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is it the same person back in 2020?
No, certainly. So Bernadette James is our sommelier.
So that's probably huge for her
that's
because
huge.
now she's going from potential 18, opportunities for tips to there's 19 people that can
Quite a
sit
bit
here.
more.
So yeah, more than doubling,
Yeah.
probably tripling her potential earnings a night. So I'm sure she's happy.
She's definitely happy, and I am ecstatic with her. She's a phenomenal person, first of all. But she fits in our little family. But she's one of the most creative, down to earth. I hate to use the word mixologist because I don't necessarily think a lot of people go with that. But it does like her beverage creations are like.
Is beverage director the more appropriate?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we call her our sommelier. We call her Bernadette, It kind of encompasses everything that
Such
she
a
is.
cool name. So what were the challenges associated with having to only focus on 9 people at a time to now having to focus on potentially like 28?
Dialing in the efficiencies, which is basically to just jump back to what you were saying, like we didn't up the staff. We didn't anything else. We just really looked at our systems and how the kitchen was set up, how the bar area was set up, how everything flows. It's just as you're walking through the living room, making sure there's no blocked areas, that you can walk through this space seamlessly and carry out service however it is. And the same thing with the kitchen, that you can move freely, not get in your own way, not get in somebody else's way, and just make it as efficient as possible. So it's not that we needed more, we just needed to do more with what we had.
Can you give me an example of the changes you made to make it more efficient?
Yeah, I mean, the funniest thing is so often like it's like furniture placement, equipment placement. It's literally just where things are is for us like the biggest thing. It's setting yourself up for success, making sure you have what you need when you get there.
So how did this? Obviously we're sitting in the living room, like this all changed, but that doesn't really affect you and your 2 other chefs, right? Or does it?
It does, because we have a secondary food menu coming at us.
Okay, yeah.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's be profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
So what were the challenges associated with increasing the kitchen throughput, but also, first answer that, and then I'll ask the follow-up question.
So the menu that we were to offer in here, you have to make sure you're maintaining crossover of ingredients, so which obviously helps our waste. So our food cost went down even further. It was excellent to begin with, and it's gone down even more. So to give you a number on that, with just a tasting menu, we were averaging between 27.5% and 29.5% food cost, which is great.
Where was your labor?
Our labor was at 35.
Okay.
So so that's high for an industry, but again, like, if we can lower one number, we can afford to raise another. So the more we lower the food cost, we can afford a little bit higher labor.
Yeah, and I'm also I have to assume that your rent here compared to other spaces is probably much lower.
Pretty low.
Yeah. So like, get into that real quick if you're like, I don't know, however much you're willing to share.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, based on square footage, so Stages itself we're almost. Oh my God, I can't remember our square footage.
If I had to guess, like no more than 900.
Oh no, it's bigger than that.
Is it?
Yeah, it's 20. It's like 23.
Oh really? Why do I feel like it's?
Yeah, it's slightly shy of like 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah, there's probably some small hidden angles that are hard to see. But I mean, so our rent is like almost $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
Which is like, and anybody that's going to be listening to this is going to be like, what the fuck?
There's more context. We didn't really get into it in the last time we had you on the show, but get into why it's so cheap.
That's why it's so, yeah. And so again, if we look at our revenue numbers, you have your seat times your guest count times your menu cost, which gives you your potential earnings, add on your potential beverage cost, which a lot of times we look at that as not a push through, but that's the variable that when we're trying to run hard numbers, we leave a lot of that out because we don't know if people are going to do it. Anybody that comes into Stages to have the tasting menu at minimum is spending $175 a person plus tax. Tax is a push through, plus gratuity also a push through. So that we can at least work numbers off of what that will be. Anything else is just helps.
Right. But the context that I think people might not realize. So you're in an old mill building,
right?
On the third floor. It's like a shared space, communal building where there's other food and beverage operations. There's a laundromat I walked past. Is there residential?
There's residential.
Upstairs?
Yeah. I'm sure when they opened that, because that may have been a relatively new thing since last time we talked as well. So the building itself is shaped like a T, whereas the sort of, we'll call it the top line there is basically all commercial. So we have 5 floors of commercial, and then the back line is all residential. So it's 5 floors of residential. It's maybe 80 something units in here.
Okay. So, like hearing that, like you would think, location, like how do you get the foot traffic? How do people know about you? So was it a challenge at first, and is it still a challenge? Or
it's always a challenge. Yeah, it's absolutely always a challenge. And so it kind of dive into that a little bit. So the better the location, the higher the rent, right? So not to say we purposely did it the other way, but if you have a worse location, you have a lower rent. Right. So at least it minimizes that. And then we based our success on our hospitality and our product versus like we need to be on the main street, main corner, which puts a ton of pressure on the level and the level of business that you have to do in order to hit those grand numbers just to pay your rent, let alone in any other, sort of overhead numbers that are involved.
Yeah. And I'm not going to argue that location doesn't matter. Like having, a huge budget to have, a corner location on a downtown street,
great.
To have that like constant, like, you drive by it every day, you see the line outside, like there's something to be said about that. But we also live in a world where the first impression no longer is the curbside appeal. Mm-hmm. It's the digital presence. It's the word of mouth, the Google reviews, you're not being discovered by driving by like that still happens, but there's this whole other layer of awareness now that happens,
right?
Where if you can keep your liabilities low and you can use I would say you had a pretty good reputation coming into this. Like you worked for some greats in the industry, so you built up your resume, you built up your personal awareness within the Seacoast area, and I think you were able to use that to like be a draw, right?
Yeah, definitely, and that also kind of, again, like nods at what we kind of started this conversation with was the idea of relevancy.
Yeah.
So you're constantly, that is a constant challenge. Third floor mill building, Dover, New Hampshire, 34,000 people in this town, not street level.
Right. Who else was doing a prefix meal back in 2015-16?
Nobody that I know.
So that's a unique selling proposition now where you can now use that unique selling proposition to create a unique experience where no one else is doing it. So I feel like what I think you did really well is you did something first, and you were able to, because it was an appeal, because you had the reputation, I think you can make things like this work. So I think we live in a world where you can really be creative today, and you can use digital assets to promote yourself. So you don't have to be beholden to a $5,000 a month rent.
Right.
You can get into these unique spaces, and it's charming. Like, it's kind of cool to be able to like try to come find this place. Like, getting inside is an experience in itself.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring that to the surface because I feel like we didn't really explain that well the first time. But back to the transition from just prefix to now prefix in the living room. We would call it couch service.
Sure.
Not table service.
I like that. Yeah.
What couch service? You had your SOM who was focusing on 9 people. Now she's focusing on 28 people. You are also now dividing your attention between a la carte and prefix. Were you concerned about the quality of service going down? Was that something that was in the back of your mind when you made this pivot?
Always. Yeah. Even on a day-to-day basis, quality of service is always, paramount to, pretty much, there are just so many things that we do.
1 or what was it, 3 or 30?
Yeah, 3
Somebody
or 30.
Said that to me.
That was me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I still have that. Yeah, that was me. I love that.
So it was literally going from 9 to 30.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was definitely a discussion of making sure we weren't going to pull the trigger to do it unless we knew that we actually could do it. And the style of the menu helps. We'll call it lack of seats. So 19 is achievable.
Right.
We figured out even on a super busy night, what could a possible turn pace be? How many possible covers could we potentially do? Their ordering style, and by the way that we do it, to call it like American tapas style, where we send out the food as it's ready versus a coursed out thing, anything like that. So it removes a level of timing for us, and so that it allows us to cook the food for the living room intermittently with the tasting menu dishes. So we can do, we'll just kind of walk you through just like the line of service. So you've got, a full kitchen, and then you plate everything for one course. As you're doing that, you've already started cooking things for what's going on in the living room. You finish plating one of the courses for the kitchen. You immediately slap down plates for what's going on in the living room. You do those. Then you go back to so it's a lot of flip-flop.
Like rhythm.
Flip-flop, big time. It's a huge rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you know you could pull it off? Like, what was like you said, you knew you could pull it off, but how did you know you'd be able to pull it off?
This is going to probably be one of the most vague answers. Just saying that it's like, I did. I don't always know how exactly I'm going to do something, but I have an incredible, confidence in what I know I can do.
Right. And you had been doing the prior order of operation for what, like 10 years? So like you had that dialed in.
We can do it with our eyes closed.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you had created habit and routine around all this stuff. So now it's almost like you can do more. You had it dialed in to the point where you had more bandwidth to.
And that actually is the question, because do you look at the kitchen, right? Do you expand the tasting menu? Do you try to offer more there? Do you try to do another turn, another day, another what?
Yeah.
And then, so our version of more was the living room.
Right. So the other thought that I had, and I held on this, so for like Bernadette's perspective, and talk about like creating an experience,
yep.
right? She had to focus on people that she could see from standing in one spot. Like she could look, like she could stand like behind the bar and see everybody she was focused on. And like, has she shared any experience of like being worried about being able to like give the same experience through in the entire space, being like not, just having the focus on those 9, but the whole space? Like I would imagine that'd be scary.
Oh, yeah. And it's a great question, because she and I talk about that all the time. It's one of our sort of like check-ins, that we do, is to make sure that she still feels comfortable with the pace of service, how we're doing, all of those kinds of things. One of the other, we talked about like efficiencies. If you kind of look directly behind me, right, into the kitchen, that's where my station is. Like I'm on the grill, or the fire station.
Yeah. And
I can see there's only one table out in the living room I can't see from there. So between the two of us, we have eyes on every guest all the time. Wow. So that enables us, and because we're such a tight-knit team, constant communication of what do you need, what's, and so many times of that is like, we don't have to ask.
Right.
Like, the person's motions, and like, okay, I know like if I help you with this, then that makes your next 3 steps easier. And then you're going to turn around and help me with something.
And she's also the bartender.
Yeah. She's the everything.
So she is serving and making drinks for 19 people potentially at a time.
Yeah, and to add to that, right?
Or 28 people at a time.
Yeah, nice. It's actually 6 in the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
So 8, 12 total throughout the night. But we offer a wine pairing a cocktail pairing, and a mocktail pairing.
Wow.
Plus whatever a la carte beverages people might just want to order off of her drink list. She's incredible.
Yeah.
So if you think about that too, it's not just did she create the cocktails and mocktails, but she's prepping them, mixing them, serving them, discussing them. Add that down to pairings, which are paired through our entire menu, wine service, whether that's by glass or by bottle, plus whatever people out in the living room are ordering. And she also does one on the mocktail and cocktail that she calls an omakase. So, very similar stuff, but where it's like, just tell me a few things that you like, and then she creates something that you don't even know what it's going to be.
That must be so fun for her.
She loves it. Yeah. Oh, she absolutely loves it. Yeah, yeah. And it's amazing too. So it's a lot of layers and levels of talk about perfect timing mechanisms.
What percentage, what's that breakdown? You said wine, cocktails, and mocktails. How does that make up your total mix in terms of volume?
I mean, it shifts. It really shifts. And what we're seeing, what's trending at the moment is people are moving more towards cocktail mocktail and a little bit of wine away from the wine pairing side of things. And I think just, wine service, wine pairing, super classical. Everybody loves it, but it's been around for a while. And now you're seeing, more cocktail bars. You're seeing mocktail bars pop up, in the cities and whatnot. And we have, her mocktail program is super solid. And she's working on developing, we'll call it a low proof menu as well. So you have your cocktails, which will be up on the higher proof region. Then mocktails obviously have 0, and then something that's kind of in the middle. So you still want to have a little bit of alcohol.
Yeah, but not get blasted.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And so and she has such a brilliant idea, because that is 100% based on her listening to our guests and creating that out of the desire of our guests.
Does that affect the price of the drinks?
Oh yes, yeah. Each thing is, so we have we have a solid price for all the cocktails, solid for all the mocktails, and then she'll develop what the solid price for.
Are your margins better on the mocktails versus the cocktails?
They're the same.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
Because I know you make good money off of what do you call off of alcohol.
Right. So I know I've spoken to people who they will charge a little less, but maybe $1 or $2 less, but because there's no alcohol in it, their margins are
are higher. Yeah. Ours are at 15 and 9.
Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't want to jump into that range that you're paying. It's so funny, because it's you look at the whole idea of the $9.99, $10 kind of idea. It's $9.99. It's oh yeah, I can totally afford that. $10 that's too much.
Right.
So it's once you get into the realm of the $16, $17 cocktail, people are less likely to do it. And so we use that. It's okay, if we do a $9 mocktail, oh, it's under $10. Oh, that let's do that. Let's do a couple of those. And then so we encourage, I hate to say this, volume drinking, but at a mocktail, why not, right? Have as much as you want. Whereas, so that's how we've, you lower the menu price, our margins, roughly stay the same as what we would make off of a cocktail.
How many ounces is in a mocktail?
Full volume is going to be the same depending on what the drink is.
Well, I'm saying if you're drinking a mocktail, it's not hard to make that thing disappear.
That's
correct. There's not a lot of volume there, so why not encourage them to try different things and be safe about it, right? Because there's no threat there. So we haven't spoken. I do want to talk about the pivot in 2022 from Open Table. I think you were using Open Table.
We were.
And you went to Talk. I remember talking to you about that, and you said that the market wasn't ready for ticketed experiences. They just didn't. But you changed. So what changed in you to think that the market was ready?
Risk versus consequence. And so with Open Table, and they've evolved now, so credit to them. But at that point, there was no consequence to the guest or to the reserving party for canceling, no showing, anything of that sort. But for the restaurant, it's huge.
Right.
And for being so small seated, 2 people no show, it's that's a third of our revenue.
Yeah, it's 2-digit.
That's gigantic, for us. And so Talk was at that point the only platform that offered that prepayment service. And obviously that service comes with a fee, but we figured out, okay, we can stretch that across. We bumped our menu prices up a little bit. We kind of amortized that across a couple of different things and cover the cost of it so that we could use the ticketing service. So for us, that gave us a little more safety in the numbers.
Was there a challenge for you in making that transition?
Less than we thought. And what I realized is when we were going from, to get what you said, it's okay, people aren't using ticketed things, how would they deal with that? Is it going to be rebellion and we'll lose covers? And it's not at all. People were totally fine with it. Yeah. And that was literally all in my head.
It makes sense because nobody was doing that here in New Hampshire. Right. In Chicago, you know, in like New York, like it's more of like a dining experience. Is like people go out to be like wine and dine, and it's more like experiential,
Right.
and there's such volume of people to be able to support it. So I understand your concern, but it sounds like it's working, which is cool. Do you use the sliding scale feature of an experience on a Friday night is more valuable than we're not even open on?
No, it's the same no matter.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the same no
Friday,
matter.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Your Thursday,
Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't charge less on a Thursday than say on a Friday?
No, and because like we only have so many seats.
Right.
If we had a bigger, dining room, we'll say, and so that we felt we needed to fill those more, but we don't. And then that's another one of those sort of supply and demand things. We because we only have so many seats, it's easier for us to pack them with a waiting list, and people are booking, outwards.
I do want to talk about your staging program, but I want to just cover like any other like evolution. You mentioned your tech stack evolution. Do you know that Resi now owns Talk?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, business evolves. I get it.
Yeah.
I know Nick Kokona sold off, all of his shares, controlling shares, and he stepped back from the Alinea group, and I think he's still sort of a silent investor at the moment, but he's not an out loud one or anything. And so I mean, business changes.
Has the experience with Talk changed at all?
We got all kinds of communication saying, basically excuse us while we're changing clothes kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen anything, at least not for how we use the system.
So it sounds like Resi is purchasing really the technology,
Yeah.
the features of Talk.
And I mean, Open Table, a lot of the platforms are now picking up that ticketing, that the ability for guest notes, and it's just all the stuff that Talk initiated. Everybody's like, oh wow, we should probably do this too.
I was so close to landing Talk as a sponsor, and all of a sudden they just stopped talking to me, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then like a couple months later, I was like, "Oh,
The transfer.
acquisition."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh," because like I love Talk, and I've been like championing them for like years now, because I think that what they did that was different, and I think Nick Kokonis, what his genius is he came into the restaurant industry with no prior restaurant experience, but he was like a dividends broker.
Right.
So like he just sees things like in numbers. And value, and I think he recognized that we're in the experience economy, and the value of an experience on a Friday night at 8:00 is more valuable than a Tuesday night, because there's just more demand.
Sure.
So like, why not slide, and like, why not have that on a sliding scale? So the people that maybe can't afford a $300 meal can come in on a Tuesday for $150. So now you're like actually doing a service, because you're making your experience reachable for different people in the market. So I thought it was genius. I don't think you have to use those features, but to recognize that we're in the experience economy, and that you should treat your restaurant like you're selling experiences.
Right.
So monetize it like an experience. I think that was really
much like a
smart.
theater.
Right.
If you buy a theater ticket or a plane ticket or anything, anything that's sort of it's experience based.
Yeah. So Resi, if you're listening, I have momentum. I'd love to promote you guys. Reach out. I think it's great work. Anything else in terms of like evolution, whether it be tech stack or just operations, that I should be aware of before we move to the staging program?
Nothing that I can think of. I just think that, over the course of time, as the restaurant has changed, the restaurant has grown. I have changed and grown. That I mean, I can honestly say I think the food that we're cooking now is the best that we've ever done. I think the services that we're offering right now is the best we've ever offered. And I'm really proud to be sitting in these couches right now with you and having this conversation in a place that I think is incredible.
I know, man. I'm proud of you. Like, it's been 11 years since I first got to speak with you,
Yeah.
and the evolution has been awesome.
Yeah.
So speaking of evolution,
Yeah.
what's the future look like, and what are you doing today that you're excited about?
Oh, the future. That's such a great question. And it really is, so Stages is going on 13 years, and we want to try to keep this thing, as long as possible. And there's always the question mark of like, with any restaurant is how long can you keep it? How long will it stay? And that's the idea of like, will it stay financially sustainable, in the marketplace? Will rents escalate to a point where your menu prices just can't withhold that?
Yeah.
Are labor prices going to go so high? The same thing. I was having a conversation recently about that, as far as like the value of food, the value of an experience, and that kind of thing, and how commodities and commercial markets have affected what people are willing to pay for food. So the market has a threshold, and right now we're charging $175 for our tasting menu. Plus. And from there, I look at it as like, how much more could I raise that? Because none of my costs are going down. That's
Right.
going to be the same no matter who you talk to. And so at some point you start tipping that little scale of like, this can't work?
Right.
And so that's my question. It's not a, do I think we can continue to produce quality food or a given experience? Like, it's never, that's never my question. I'm never worried about that. It's simply just of, will our menu, what we can produce, will that push over that line?
I think the other variable, when you started this 13 years ago, you were the only kid on the block doing this. Now, how many people are doing prefix meals?
Yeah, I mean, more and more people. Yeah, so there's more competition, which I love. I guess it hypes us up to be like, okay, we keep going, keep staying ahead of the pack, keep being the front runner, which is great. And I still feel that way, not egotistically, but I feel that we're still leading in a lot of ways. But what makes me really, really proud, not only that, is what you just said, is that the amount of other people that are really pushing into self-expression within food, within their experiences, to see the more prefix menus and tasting menus to sort of come out. And
it's a smarter way to do business.
It's such a smarter way. If you can do it, then yeah.
So are there other smart ways that you have in like your future that you see opportunities that you might leverage to continue to evolve? Like, what appeals to you right now, thinking about like what other people are doing that seems smart?
Yeah, I mean, the diversity of spaces, diversity of offerings, the diversity of offerings within a space. If I can get my words correct, I think is big. I've seen a couple of restaurants and friends that have done this. Whether it's they have a cocktail bar within a thing, they're offering a tasting menu and a lounge. I think that as far as underneath a roof, one single roof, I mean, there's only so many things you can do before you become confusing.
Right.
So I think that as far as that, I think we're kind of maxed on that. We offer different experiences within the living room. We do a Som Sips series where Bernadette, talks about more curated wines, cocktails, and mocktails. And then
now we're getting into memberships, right? Yeah, that's smart.
So there's different things to do it. And then, we were doing an art of plating series. We did something just very recently called the Farm series,
right?
Where we invited each farmer from where we source our food to come in, and it connected our guests to their food, which I'm huge on. And so those are things within our education.
So what's stopping you from, say, on a Tuesday night having the farm club where like it's an educational piece where you bring in a farmer and you like share the story? I think that was one thing we talked about the first time you were on the show, is like the story of the food, like from sea to mountain. I think you did something like that, and like really educating people. But also, like, what's stopping Bernadette from, say, coming on a Wednesday night when this place is closed and just doing a wine club where there's like a story and like you can like have wine shipped to you, or like there's things you can do. Like, we are no longer beholden to the four walls,
right?
And there are different tools and technologies out there that we can leverage to get recurring revenue to increase and that's the kind of stuff I want people to start thinking. Like, dump the 1905 business model where you figure out how much it costs between labor and cost of goods, and you just add, you hope you make 5% or 10% if you're doing really good above that. Like, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And with online ordering, I know your menu doesn't really.
No. Yeah.
But like, if you are like a quick service, like, build a whole nother line offsite in a commissary and just like have all of your online orders go to that place. Like,
there's so many options and so many choices right now. And I think the key to that is see what works best for you. We are working on something going forward in 2025. We'll call it, an outside experience. And I do mean that actually quite literally, where we're starting talks with, B&Bs or potentially Airbnbs and things like that we rent out the place for an entire weekend. So this is a small group, maybe 6 to 12 people or something. They come in, we have a casual dinner. So it's me plus guests, and everybody stays for the weekend. And, you come in, we have a casual dinner, and then I'm gonna take you guys out hiking.
Nice.
I'll make everybody breakfast on Saturday morning. We'll pack up some lunches, take everybody out into the wilderness, and do some fun hiking, some fun exploration, and then come back and I'll make you guys a really nice dinner.
Nice.
Get up in the morning on Sunday. I'll make you guys a nice breakfast, and then everybody takes off.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
So, had the author of The Experience Economy on the show, Joe Pine, and a lot of that was the reason why I want to get him on the show is because of things like talk and like to think of like this is an experience. But what he said at the end of that conversation, and I want to get him back on the show when I'm in Minneapolis next, that we're going into the transformation economy. And I feel like for you and your uniqueness and your passion for the outdoors and to climb and to hike, there's like this, so there's experience in the moment, but then there's experiences over time that can form a transformation. And I see that being an opportunity for you where you have almost like a lifestyle of like people who share the same values, where like you can help people unplug and get back into nature and wellness for like, you know, the nature and food. I don't know if that's too much of a stretch for you, but like that is the transformation economy where you're literally helping people reconnect and like transform and be better people. What's going through your mind as I'm saying this?
Oh, you basically just dialed it in. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that's amazing.
I feel like I was swinging and missing first.
Yeah. Maybe my look didn't give you that. But no, that's literally it, you know, and I think, so two parts, right, is like I've been cooking for 30 years. So I have quite a bit of experience, you know, under my belt at this point. And so now, you know, one of the big questions is like, so how do you take that 30 years and really use it? You know, do you sit inside your four walls? You know, do you just keep trying to make, you know, some great food and whatnot? Or do you take all of that and really see what you can expand and do? And for me, and then you just said that, is like taking things that are super important to me of, you know, personal health and wellness and connectivity and intention, and putting those things together in an experience that, you know, centers around food.
Yeah, and restoration beyond the food, but the soul, the mind. And I think that this is exactly why, and people think I'm crazy, and I echo it all the time. The mission statement of this podcast is to change the world through inspiring and empowering the restaurant industry. Yeah. If we can share perspectives like this, if we can teach restaurant owners across the nation that they have the power to transform their communities, and I think this industry is going to change the world because we're the most connected, I think, to what it is to be human. With the thing that we do, we're connected to life. Food is life.
Food is life.
It's literally living things that we're taking and we're transferring life from something to another thing. And if you look at our relationship, anthropology, I love this shit. Like we humans evolved around our relationship with food. Mm-hmm. It's so connected. And I think that we've kind of evolved away from that. And I think we're starting to devolve back to it. And I think because the restaurant industry is the closest to it, community, food, relationships, this, like, as the world becomes automated, like, you can't automate the ability to transform energy into other humans. Like,
no. And it's totally true. I think as we've gotten so far away, the industry itself and commercialization has gotten so far away from what a restaurant actually is, you know, being a piece of the community, being a cornerstone of the community, being a place where friends, family, strangers meet, you know, and get together.
Hub and spoke. It was the hub. It was the place.
It was the place. And I think that so many things have just gotten so far away into like, how many seats can we get under a restaurant or under a roof, and how big can we make this? And we're going to factory farm, you know, this kind of thing and that kind of thing. It's just gotten so off the rails that people are hopefully, you know, starting to realize is like they're missing pieces of them that this food and these restaurants are not supplying. And whether that's on an emotional level or, you know, a physiological level, because like, I mean, talk about like health crisis, and right? I mean, so many things are connected to food and activity. So if we can provide, going back to the experience that I was just talking about, you know, food and activity, you know, within one idea, is like we're nurturing people in a way that is, you know, super, I think special, very emotional, very personal, you know, to them, and that they will connect to, and that we can bring it back around.
Yeah, man, I love it. And the whole reason why I came here, well, I've been wanting to reconnect with you. Then I saw your post on Instagram about staging, and I was like, that would be great to talk to you. And I'm overdue to reach out to Evan. So we got to talk with our time remaining about your staging program. So I think in your words, you said you're looking to change the game of staging.
Big time. So, I mean, that myself, much like other cooks and chefs and whatnot, have been staged at a restaurant, and, people's experiences vary. You're the guy in the corner, you're picking the herbs, you're not allowed to touch things, or you're assigned to a CDP, and that's you're a guy for the day, or there's just an assortment of things. And none of which, I mean, hopefully you get to learn things, and it's cool. I got to stage at this restaurant, and that was awesome. And I saw this guy, I met this chef. And what I really want to do is include these people into our day, into our program, and into everything that we do here, to the point where they start with just prepping with us, but they're coming in with the absolute idea of their final day with us is going to be a presentation of 3 dishes that they created with my guidance, to bring it to a level of hopeful personal understanding and then further application, so that not only do they have the experience of working with us, here at Stages, but then they really get to slow their world down, ask whatever they want to ask, talk about whatever they want to talk about, and ask the questions that, as they grow as a cook and as chef, that they can look forward to and be like, okay, at some point I'm going to have to make these choices, So I'm sitting here myself, is like, I've owned this restaurant for almost 13 years. You have, an accomplished chef and owner of a restaurant right in front of you. What do you want to ask me?
Right. How is this experience different from the way that staging was traditionally done over the past, 20 years?
I don't think I never got the chance to have like a sit down conversation with anybody that I worked with. I mean, I definitely, talking with Grant or anything like that, you have the opportunity just throughout, prep or whatnot, just, ask a question here and there, but there was never room for like personal exploration. Like, hey chef, I was thinking about this idea. Is like, there just isn't time for that. There's so much just go, busy. Right.
And I think, the industry has caught in some heat in the recent years of almost abusing the stagiaire of like, hey, like, you're like this Michelin star, James Beard award-winning chef, and you're sold out for 5 months in advance, and your labor costs are lower than most other places too, because you have all these people that want to come work for you for free or next to nothing. And how is what you're doing different than that?
So within that, they get the experience that they have, and then at the end of the week with us is that they're walking away with 50% of the proceeds from that evening. So they are actually making money, which is not a thing. You're not really getting paid for stages. So I want them to feel validated for their work. I want them to feel that they were a part of what it is. And not just to feel that they just gave up their time.
Right. Where do you stand on the traditional? I keep on saying traditional, but I feel like it's only traditional relative to us, because as we grew up, like as Gen Xers and millennials, like what was traditional was, go to culinary school and then go to work for a big name chef, work for next to nothing, and then use that reputation to go open your own place.
Sounds familiar.
I mean, it's a common pattern.
Yeah.
So like, what was my train of thought? Oh man, I lost it. But so going forward, it will come back to me. I promise you, it will come back to me. What did I say? Can you refresh? Like, what was I saying before?
You were just going through the old classic pattern of go to culinary
school. I remember now. So culinary school. Mm-hmm. Where do you land on the should you go to culinary school or not?
That has got to be such a hard question. I think part of it is like, what do you require as a person, as a cook? Culinary schools have great value. They show good structure. They teach good basics. They teach professionalism. They teach systems. They teach what your potential options are going to be when you walk out the door.
It's a wide swath of experience.
It is, yeah, and it can provide network.
I think that last part right there is the most key. Is
network.
Yeah, and from my experience talking to so many different people, it's the people who end up going to culinary school as like a second education after they've done one thing. They've worked in restaurants. They decide they want to commit their life to restaurants. They're 23, 24 years old, and they go hard and they bust their ass, and they get recognized by their professors, and they go, where do you want to work?
Yeah.
And I think that is because unless you know somebody, it's really hard to get into a French Laundry or,
it really, really is, and so much in this industry is like, it's who you know.
Right.
You can, walk through so many back doors and skip lines because of somebody you know. But accompanying that is what you just said, that you need to work hard.
You got to earn it.
You have to earn that.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to give a buddy, an opportunity just because, we're friends.
Right.
Like, you need to be able to uphold, my, the word that I said. You know, it's like, okay, I've got this guy who, you know, wants to come stage at your restaurant. I was like, yeah, but isn't he good?
Right.
You know?
So in a world where like there seems to be this obvious pain point in the restaurant industry of like, can't find anybody to work for me. Meanwhile, we're still encouraging kids to go to culinary school where they are going to pay what, $50,000 for how many years? Yeah. Like I don't know exactly what the average income or the investment is for a culinary degree. It just seems like there's an obvious path where like, if we just remove this middle ground and we create like a staging program where like we educate the future, and that's the other way I think this industry has transformative power is that we touch. I don't know if there's another industry that has so many first-time employees come to work for us. Like we are setting the standard of their professional career going forward, whether they go on to other things, like this is their first job getting a paycheck and earning money in the workforce. And if we can make that experience top notch and we can take care of people and empower them and keep their debt down, like give them a fighting chance out of the gates. I still have over $100,000 worth of school loans, you know, like I think like our generation really kind of got screwed where like the whole education thing just got way too expensive and like we hadn't quite figured it out yet. And now we're just come out into our young adult lives with debt and it's just so hard to get ahead. So I think having a solid staging program can kind of solve that problem.
It is. I'm going to kind of add to and also challenge a little bit of what you said. You know, so yes, we are with the staging program trying to help and build a positive future. And I think, you know, we looked at sort of the labor crisis and people leaving the industry. And you have to ask the question, it's not sit there and freak out, it's why? Is it simply that you're not making enough money? You know, the world around you is getting more expensive and a restaurant can't pay, you know, your hourly rate because like I understand that. Right. I mean, that touches on kind of what I was saying before is like our menu prices can only push so high before like we're literally out of dollars to give. Right. And I can sit here as a restaurant owner myself and say, it's like, I am not sitting with full pockets at all and just being super stingy and be like, sorry guys, you know, it's like, that's not it. There has to be a way to figure out multiple points here that we can create, and this is where the staging program comes in as well. We can create a positive working atmosphere so that it, instead of pushing cooks away, it will attract them. Part of that attraction not only is, the entity themselves, maybe, you know, whoever's in charge, it's the work environment, it's all that, but the food and beverage that you're creating, you know, is it quality? Is it coming from somewhere of purpose? So that we're giving them a full experience of work. And then from there, that we are able to adjust costs on the outside, meaning that if we can, and this is gonna be a big statement, really work to push back against commodity and commercial food and adjust our food purchasing back towards local farms and local producers, then things might actually start to balance out. And then we can start to pay our labor and our staff who work so freaking hard to do what they believe in, what they actually should be paid.
There has to be a shift in culture.
Huge.
And I think I've identified that like we can't do the right thing unless we get support from the consumer to do the right thing. And I think part of that is, again, the restaurant industry has the power to change the world by educating the consumer on like your purchasing decisions matter. Yeah. And, like if we're going to change communities, it has to come from the inside out. It has to come from the people in that community choosing to do the right thing. Do you need 5 streaming services, new shoes every month, like a new wardrobe every season? Like where is your money going? How many rooms in your house are empty? Like where is our money going?
There's a great sentence that was said to me very recently. It's, you know, it was, you know, vote with your dollar and vote with your fork. And I always think that that's so great because it's like, if you go and support the restaurants that are doing things, you know, in their opinion, our opinion, your opinion, positively, community forward, supporting local, then you're eating, you know, you're voting with your fork and moving your dollar in that direction. Then those restaurants, the ones that need it, start bringing in the revenue to actually pay the labor force what they deserve and create that atmosphere that we were just talking about.
The $1 million question, chef. Yeah. How do we do that?
Oh man, it takes more than me and you. Yeah. It really, I mean, it's huge shifts, you know, like you had said before. It's like and I don't have the answer as to how exactly this will happen, but it's a big mental shift of putting value into food. It's not, you know, the the $2 chicken nugget. It's not that. It's not that commercial food. It's like understanding that like a good tomato, for example, doesn't cost 12 cents.
Yeah.
You know, it's understanding that what you're paying for is the time it took for the farmer or farmers to not just grow the tomato, but it's like, it's the tractor, it's the land, it's the weather that decides to rain on them all the time. You know, it's like
paying their employees,
yeah. You know, it's all of those things that go into that tomato that's way better than anything you're going to get at a store.
I have hope that with the evolution of AI, a lot of people who have left the skill and labor, blue collar workforce, the white collar jobs are going to start going away. And no offense to the people with the white collar jobs, but I feel like when they're like, well, I'm not going to be a data analyst anymore. You know, like AI can do that way better than me. I think there's going to be a shift of people coming back to the more basic, like not basic, but core crafts. And I think we're going to start to value things like what people can create.
It's the cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
because we once did that. We once did that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we were saying before. And I was talking to Josh and Miranda, who the farmers at New Hope Farm that we get our vegetables from. And we were just saying, it's like, everything is a cycle, right? You know, so we started out this way, knowing the farm, knowing the farmer, going down, and getting our food and vegetables and meats from our friends, basically. And to so far away from that, so far. And that people are now desiring, they want that again.
Well, I think what I've noticed too, another trend is we're starting to realize that, everyone's sick. Why are we all sick? Because we screwed up our food, right? And I think the only way you're going to get the consumer to do the thing we need them to do is to make it about them.
Yeah.
And say, listen, like, do you want to be healthy? Are you afraid of cancer? Are you afraid of all these things, or quality of life? Do you want to be a happier person? If you make this one decision to divert more income, I think in 1940 or something like that, 1930, maybe 20s, 22% of the average household income went to food. Today, it's like less than 10%. If we make a conscious decision to do the right thing for you, because you'll be healthier, you'll be happier, you'll have better relationships. If you appeal to their selfishness, which I hate to make it that simple, but human behavior, like we are humans, we're selfish. If you can appeal to that, what's in it for me, people buy benefits. If you can list the benefits and make it about, and I think you target the people with the most money because they have the excess income.
Sure.
If you start diverting that cash flow, then the market becomes more competitive. And I think it becomes like you have to break down that barrier.
You do that. There's a lot of jumping to the idea of like flavor memories, what food does. You think back to your childhood, right? You can remember a food, a dish, or something that like you remember is like, oh, I remember this growing up. For me, it's like my mother's macaroni and cheese. I will never forget the flavor, the taste of that, and that's probably like my deathbed meal. But then from there, it's like, so what we as at least U.S. culture have trained ourselves to want is this commercial commodity food, and that's what we've trained our systems to not just be attracted to, but to crave. And then so it's harder for the general public to move towards like local, like that good tomato with that excellent basil and that really good mozzarella. Yeah,
getting over the sticker price alone is enough of a challenge.
Correct.
But 100%. I could keep going, man. I'm looking at the time, and I want to respect your day.
This is a great topic.
Yeah,
I could just go on this all day.
I could definitely keep going. I want to come back in a couple of years. Hopefully, some big things happen for you in the next couple of years that we can come back and talk about. And before we wrap up, I do want to ask, who do you respect and admire in the industry? And this is really what I want to be my North Star. I don't want to be the person to decide who should be a guest on the show. I don't want publicists reaching out to me to decide who to be a guest on the show. I want, this market better than anybody else and better than the publicists. So like, who's doing it right? Who's running a fiscally responsible business and also doing right by their staff and making an impact on their community? Who comes to mind?
The first person that jumps into my head is one of my great friends, Justin Carlisle. He's in Milwaukee. And he did a very similar shift to what we did here. He has a restaurant called Ardent in Milwaukee. And same thing, long-standing, beautiful place, incredible food, tasting menu. And then next door, he had a ramen shop for a while. And then I think just as life kind of moved on, they shifted that to more recently a cocktail lounge. Nice. And so that now he and I, oddly enough, both have tasting menu with a cocktail lounge, pushed inside of it. And it's that diversity. I think it's enabled him to kind of move a little more freely about the cabin, you know, as an owner. Allow his staff to kind of step up into bigger roles. And then he's been able to move around and take on some other projects, you know, which is great.
I love
and
that.
then his wife, I love them both, and their dogs are freaking phenomenal. So they're doing good things.
That's Justin Argyle.
Carlisle.
Why did I say Argyle? Carlisle. And
Yeah.
he's in Milwaukee?
Yep.
All right. Look out, Justin. I'm coming after you. And how can we connect with you if maybe we want to come stage for you? Or maybe we have questions about today's conversation, or we just want to come eat at your restaurant. What's the best way to connect?
So, I mean, definitely, I mean, our websites are the best place, you know, stagesdining.com and the living room nh.com. You can find me on Instagram at Evan Hennessey. Feel free to send a message out. Will have the next year's staging application open coming soon, which that'll be through the Stages and Living Room Instagram pages. You'll be able to send your application through that.
And we're here in Dover, New Hampshire. Evan, thank you so much.
Yeah, man, it's great to talk to you.
Continuing to make time for me. I love making an example of you. I love watching your growth. I can't do what I do without people like you, willing to get open, willing to get vulnerable, willing to share their story and be inspirational. There is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable. Cheers.
Cheers.